I drove approximately 2.5 hours to pick this clock up in person, and the clockmaker I bought it from told me this clock was recently serviced. What do you think? I was just looking at the clock to make sure all the parts and pieces were there and it was complete. The next step is to remove the bellow from the frame. With this particular model, you need to remove 4 screws. I asked the clockmaker when I bought the clock, is the bellow in good condition? And he said yes. I suspected a bellow from this period may not be in good condition, and it is about as flat as a bellow can get. I will need to source a new bellow from the same period, or at least one that is in usable condition, most likely off of eBay. I was very lucky, and I was able to source a bellow that still is filled with a good amount of ethyl chloride. This bellow was manufactured in 1947. We have the bellow off. The next step is to remove the hands and the dial. You do need to use this special tool to remove the hands, otherwise you may break this 4th wheel. Keep in mind, the 4th wheel that is used on these Atmos clocks is the only part that is still used on later models all the way up to the 528. Now we can remove the screws that hold the dial in place and remove the dial, the paper, and the dial pan. The barrel still has energy in it from the main spring, so I'm holding the intermediate wheel with my index finger on my left hand while I am removing the movement. If we don't do this, we stand a very good chance of ruining the movement, especially the fork, which already looks like it's in sad condition. Look how bent the fork is. And this one took quite a bit of wiggling to get it off. There you go. I have removed that front spring that's hanging from the frame. I'm going to compress the spring for the bellow back to remove the pin and remove that spring. Notice the pressure plate has 2 holes in it. This is the only model that has those 2 holes in it. It will have to line up with the bellow. I can't get over how beautiful the frames are on these World War II models. They have these beautiful blue screws. The frames are thicker, they're more ornate, they're just built to last forever. All right, once this frame comes off, it's a little sticky to come off. We're going to remove the barrel, we're going to remove the wheel, and we're going to look at the condition of the regulator and the balance tube to see what condition they're in. Clocks of this era use a screw to regulate the speed of the clock instead of a lever that you'd have on top of the regulator. It's a little bit different. I don't want to lose this hardware. It's very important that we keep all the same hardware. Okay, the movement is out. I'm just getting a general look at the movement and its condition. I can see that the aluminum fork is in horrible condition. Again, I just can't get over how thick the plates are on the movement, how beautiful the craftsmanship is on the Geneva stripes. I mean, it's just absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, look at that aluminum fork, how bent up it is. This clock didn't work when I got it. When I picked it up, I just wanted to make sure all the parts and pieces were there. I knew whatever was wrong with the clock, I could fix it. It's just really hard to believe a clockmaker left a fork in that condition, but look at the finish on this. It's a little bit, it could use some improvement. There is a thumbprint inside the lacquer. Someone's probably tried to touch this up with lacquer and they left their thumbprint on it. Look at the Geneva stripes on the back of the movement. You never see this because it's installed on the frame, but yet they put it on anyway. The edges are rounded, they're polished. Look at that thumbprint, really sticks out there, doesn't it? And there's some discoloration on some of the wheels. It really needs a cleaning in the worst way. I have a feeling once we get this movement cleaned, it's gonna work like the day it was made. Look at that fork. First order of business is to clean the dial. This dial took me about a half hour to clean. It came out very nicely. You can see how dirty it was just by looking at those cotton cloths to the right of the dial. About ready to clean this movement, and I just can't get over how beautiful every part of this movement is, even the parts you can't see when it's installed in the frame. The movement was cleaned in a parts washer, and I do follow up with some extra scrubbing. You can see that there's a little bit of soil still found in some areas of the movement. It's right here on this patch. Now, even though the movement's been cleaned in a solution, I do like to go through every jewel with some pegwood and just polish the interior of the jewel, because once we polish the pivots on our wheels, we want to make sure we have a frictionless surface. It takes such a small amount of energy to move the parts of this movement. We want to make sure that everything is moving as freely as possible. This takes time. This is something a lot of clock repair technicians don't do, but this clock deserves it. That is a clean and oiled mainspring. This is one of 3 patches that was soaked with one dip, and I just went around between my fingers and cleaned it about 3 or 4 times. Then I put some Mobius 9020 between my fingers with some latex gloves and went around and oiled everything between my fingers. The ratchet mechanism on the barrel arbor is a little bit different than it is on earlier models. Everything has been properly lubricated with 9020. It's just a bit fidgety to get on. Once it's on, we can lubricate those pivots with 9020, drop it into the frame along with the wheel, put the top frame on, tighten our screws, and ready to start our assembly process. A little bit of work has been done, and I'm going to explain how I did it. The first thing I did was connect this spring to the pin. Next is I routed the chain for the bellow through here, but to do that, you have to wind this all the way up so that you get rid of, so that you have slack on the chain, but it has tension then on the spring. And then the spring, I caught the second link with the pin, and I made sure that everything, meaning the chain, let's see, if we look down this chain, we can see everything is nice and straight. And then I also realigned this back portion of the plunger or of the spring to mimic or duplicate the location of these pins on the bellow. If you notice, these pins line up with the hardware. So if we take a step back and we look, we can see that we are just about lined up here with that screw hole, and then there's one up here. It's right about like that. We can make little adjustments later when we put the bellow together. We can hold this pin and we can rotate the things, but right now we just want to make sure that everything is working properly before the movement gets installed. And one way to do that is I'm going to hold the intermediate wheel with my thumb, and I'm just going to give this a few pumps. Make sure everything's winding. And you can look at the barrel arbor, and we are winding properly. The chain is nice and straight. It's looking good. I'm going to release some of the energy by just slowly letting the intermediate wheel unwind. You can see this spring beginning to extend a little bit as it unwinds. You can hear it making little ticks. Okay, looks good. Next will be assembly of the movement and installation of the movement. The fork is badly bent. A fork that is not properly poised will stop a clock from working. And as you can see, this thing is really bent up in every direction in the wrong way. This will take some work. The movement is back on the movement holder, and we're just going to make sure that everything is nice and perfectly aligned, and so far it looks like it's very good. This will be a simple movement to assemble. So I'm just making sure all of our gears, the escapement wheel, everything, all the pivots are installed perfectly in a jewel before we install the top. The top plate has been assembled, and the 6 screws that fasten the top plate to the movement have been installed. But not tight. I just want to make sure everything's moving freely, especially that escapement. There's a little bit of play in that escapement. So before we tighten everything down, I just think that's the way that the escapement sits inside of the jewel. Before we tighten everything down, we're just going to make sure that all of our wheels are moving freely. The last component is going to be the fork, and we're just going to make sure everything is moving freely. The movement has been installed on the clock. I just snugged up these 2 screws. All of the gears are engaged, and you remember we had to manipulate the fork just a little bit. So I'm looking to see how that's, let me try and get a little better. You want to, the fork should be in contact with the upper 1/3 of the roller. Looks like we're pretty close. So next step is going to be wind up the main spring and see how everything works. I thought I would make a little time-lapse video of the interaction between the pallet fork and the impulse roller. Look how perfectly that fork is just throwing that roller to the other side of the balance tube. This is going to be a really good performing clock. The clock has been running for about 30 minutes. What I did was, once I installed the movement, I compressed the bellow spring until it is completely collapsed. Once the bellow spring is collapsed, that means that the power in this spring and the power in the barrel have reached equilibrium. It won't compress anymore. I didn't pull it back. This is as if it was being compressed with a bellow. So I want you to look at how nice and clean everything turned out for the fork. All those weird little bends are out. Everything seems to be working perfectly. What we're going to do now is just quickly look at these motifs. Let's see, these right here. There are 8 of them on this wheel. So each motif is going to represent 45 degrees. Okay, we're gonna wait for this to stop swinging, and we're gonna measure our amplitude. We're gonna start, let's start the middle of this panel right here. So we'll start that with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and just a hair over. That's 450 degree amplitude. The clock has been running for a couple of days with no issues. Look how shiny the dial is. So, of course, obviously the next step was I installed the dial pan, the dial, and the hands. When setting the clock, always rotate the minute hand in a clockwise direction. Never touch the hour hand. Such a beautiful clock. Look at how beautiful this clock turned out. Remember how filthy this was at the beginning of the video? Look at the beautiful Geneva stripes. Now those stripes are installed throughout the entire clock. The front of the clock, the back of the clock. The movements on these clocks, the brass parts are much thicker than any other clock produced after, including the 528s, the 540s. These things are built like tanks. Look at the dial. This is brushed metal. This isn't painted like you'll find on a modern 540. Even 528s will have a painted dial. These things were made to last forever. Let's compare that to a dial from a 526-5. I'm working on this one now. This is the client's clock. It looks like it lived at the bottom of the ocean. Same with the brass. It just wasn't loved. The lacquer's all scratched. They probably used a window cleaner to clean the brass, whereas the durability of the brass, this has probably been mishandled also, but look how pretty it looks. Okay, amplitude is running at 560 degrees. I couldn't ask for more. You will never find these clocks for sale on eBay or anywhere in running condition. Collectors just do not want to sell them. Usually when you find a clock of this era with a working bellow, this is a collector's clock. These guys don't let these things out of their hands. They're worth a lot of money.